A lot of the discussion on urban development, urban planning, etc. in India has most of the time to do with bricks and mortar. Whereas these sessions are really concentrating on what the citizen does and is subjected to in both ways. I was involved in a very large urban study in the late 1970s in Bogota in Colombia. And one of my early papers was called "The People of Bogota, Who They Are, What They Do, Where They Live." And I'm delighted to see that this is exactly what you're doing. Urban people of India, who they are, what they do, where they live, where they work, and so on. One of the most interesting things and curious things that has happened in India in the last 30 years actually is that urbanization has in fact slowed down rather than accelerating, which is most curious because normally, just as our economic growth accelerated from the previous 3% a year for 30 years to an average of 6 to 6.5 in the last 30 years, normally you would have expected urbanization to accelerate. And that hasn't happened still. Even the 2011 census does not suggest that there's an acceleration. It is somewhat faster than the previous two censuses, previous 2 decades. So there's some problem. And there clearly is not enough job creation. There's not enough livelihoods available in urban areas. So it's of the utmost importance that we really generate much more jobs in urban areas because that will help rural areas and urban areas. And to my mind, not enough is being talked about in terms of generation of productive jobs. And there is an issue, to my mind, on manufacturing that, once again, one of the curious things the last 30 years while we accelerate in growth is that manufacturing is not accelerated. I was associated closely with the industrial policy reform in 1991. And the curious thing again is that the industrial growth in the last 20 years, that is after the reforms, is no higher than the previous decade, that is in the 1980s. And the kind of industrial growth we've had has not been job-creating industrial growth. And we had a long sort of prejudice against locating manufacturing in towns and cities, when in fact, apart from administrative and religious capitals in a sense, cities have grown because of manufacturing. If we want inclusiveness, people need work and productive work, modern productive work. And for that implies all kinds of training, education, nutrition, and all the rest of it. And so I think that that's among the most important things we have to be looking at.